Our topic this week is Marketing 101. What does that mean? Well, it means that everything in life requires marketing. And every time that we go out into the world and interact with other human beings, we are effectively marketing ourselves. We are putting our package out there. But we do a lot of this self-marketing without realizing what we're doing, and we do a lot to diminish our brand. The person that you are is your brand. And I know that it's kind of a materialistic way of looking at ourselves and at life, but it is a reality, because when someone first meets us, they are looking at our package. And what we want to do is to create a marketing strategy for ourselves that puts us in the best possible light. And how can we do that? This was inspired by a conversation I had with a client this past week. And she was saying, I think that I just don't market myself well. And those were her words, which I thought were very interesting, because I look at it that way. But often my clients don't understand that, yes, it is marketing. So what can we do to create a marketing strategy that shows the very best version of us and doesn't advertise the lesser qualities that we have? So think about it. Coca-Cola, you can say at one point, if not now, if not always, is one of the biggest brands on earth. Everyone knows the logo, everyone knows what it is, yet they continue to do advertising and marketing, and they continue to tweak their marketing to present themselves how they want to be seen by a particular audience. So if Coca-Cola needs to do it, then we certainly do also. So what is our personal brand? What is the picture that we are putting out into the world? And something to understand, and sometimes we forget this, every time that you are going out into the world, you are presenting yourself to the world. So it may be helpful to think about it and look at the package that you're presenting. What does your presentation look like? And at no point, I want to be very clear, am I telling you to become a fake version of yourself, to present yourself in a way that's not real. Be your authentic self, but not everything has to be exposed in the same moment. Imagine when you go to a restaurant, the food is something that they are putting particular care into because you're going there to eat. The goal of a restaurant is food, but they also put so much effort into the presentation that they put the food in, how they plate the food, how the table looks, how the walls in the restaurant look, how the server looks, the attitude of the server. So there is much more going into your experience of that restaurant than simply good food. You can go and have amazing food that's not presented well in an ugly restaurant with a nasty, disheveled server, and you're not going to enjoy that experience. So I want to say first, yes, you are wonderful and amazing and incredible, exactly the way that you are. But let's put it together so that the people out there in the world, when you go to on a date or in a singles event, or even just to work, or even the supermarket, there are people there. All of these are opportunities to meet different people. So how are you going out into the world? This is a very important idea, because especially as women, we have this kind of pressure to look good. And then we have this idea that, well, whoever is going to love me is going to love me for me. And yes, that is true. You want your person to love you for you, but you also want to put your best foot forward. So it's a fine line. We have to walk the line between creating a good presentation and being authentic. So I'm not suggesting that you be fake, to present yourself as something that you are not. So what can we do? The first thing is our external package. A lot of people that watch the live comment on my hair and, oh, you're so glamorous, and I appreciate that. It's very sweet, but I take the time before I show up here with you to put together my external package. And it doesn't take a lot of time. I'm not doing anything fancy. I'm blow drying my hair, which I do every day. I'm putting on some makeup, which I do every day. And when I do those things, I feel better about myself. So when I go out into the world, or when I come here to interact with you, or when I speak to a client on Zoom, I take those few minutes to put together my external package, and I don't show up here with you in my pajamas. And that's something to keep in mind. When you are going someplace, how well put together is your external package? The other thing to keep in mind that's important, as women, sometimes we underestimate this because we don't understand how visual men are. Men are much more visual than we are. They make decisions with their eyes in a second, whereas women tend to look at other qualities, but men are interested in the external package. And I'm not saying that you need to be a supermodel, but accentuate what is good about you and put that package together to the best of your ability so that he sees the best of you at the very beginning. And later, other aspects of you will come through, but it's always a good idea to take those few minutes to put your presentation together. I am married now 27 years, and still, if I'm going to dinner with my husband, even if we're at home, I try my very best not to look terrible when I sit across from him at the table. Not necessarily wearing makeup, but maybe I'll brush my hair, make the bun so it's not sideways, and take just a few minutes to make my external package a better version, the best possible version of it in that moment. The other thing is, what is your package, your internal package? What are you saying about yourself? What are your responses to the questions? How is your body language? Is your body language sulked over, or are you proud? And these are things that we can practice. And it's important to take an inventory. Take an inventory of your body language. How are you sitting? Are you sitting with your arms crossed? Are you sulking over? All of these are signals that we don't even know that we're putting out there, and the other person doesn't know that they're seeing and interpreting, but this is the signal, get away from me. So we have to be conscious of these things and take a real close look at ourselves. And what is it that we're projecting? Are we projecting all of our insecurities? What are we saying about ourselves? Are you saying that you are not worthy? What are the words that you're using when answering questions on a date? And this is something that you can kind of not prearrange, but put some thought into. How do I want to present myself? What is the first thing that I want this person to know about me? And it doesn't have to be something manufactured, it's the real thing. But what are your best qualities? What is some achievements that you have come to in your life that make you feel good about you? And let's start telling those stories before the other stories. A lot of people will go on a date and they'll begin with the stories of their failure. Why do you want to present yourself that way? Why do you want to say, well, I'm single because my ex dumped me? Well, my first thought is, well, what's wrong with you that your ex dumped you? And there is nothing wrong with you, but that is the progressive linear thought that comes out. So you can say something like, I dated someone for a while and it just didn't work out. We weren't right for each other. And that's actually the truth. That's actually the truth, that you just weren't right for each other, and that's why it broke up. There may be other symptoms, but let's not go into the details of it, because that's not appropriate on the first few days to discuss those kind of details. And let's leave what happened in the past, and let's focus on where we are now and where we want to go. So talk about your dreams. I have a dream of traveling to Tahiti, let's say, and I'm just making that up. So let's talk about our hopes and dreams instead of our past failures. And if you want to talk about the difficulties of your life, you can talk about them, but talk about them in how you were resilient, how you were able to overcome the difficulty, not how you were victimized by the difficulty of life. And it's still the truth. It's still a matter of what happened to you. Sorry. It's still the truth. It's still your story. But how are you presenting the story? Is it a story that someone else is going to want to be a part of? And look at the story that you're telling. Does this story put you in a good light? And that may be how you want to share your stories in chronological order. Start with the best stories that put you in the best, that present you in the best way. Now, I'm not saying that like I have a picture with Roger Federer. I met Roger Federer. I'm not going to go around and show my Roger Federer picture and say, oh, look, I'm friends with Roger Federer, because it's irrelevant and it's kind of silly. But if I'm talking to someone who is a tennis fan, I could say, oh, I was at this hotel and I met Roger Federer, and then I could show my picture. So it shows a story of excitement, but it's a real story of what actually happened, and I'm not now pretending to be his best friend. So it's important to keep it real, to be real, but to keep it positive. Tell good stories about yourselves. And also be vulnerable in that you're sharing things that are true to your heart, but don't overshare. Don't overshare. At the very beginning of a relationship, the person that you're with doesn't need to know the minute details of what happened. You don't need to share everything. So be creative about what you're sharing, in that put your best foot forward. And it's a good idea to kind of have in mind the things that you would like to share, and to have in mind the things that you would like to know about the person, and have some starter questions, some things that you would really like to know. What made you come to the job that you have? What is your family situation like? Who is the person closest to you? How are you? What is your relationship like with your siblings? What's your relationship like with your parents? And these are some soft, probing questions that you can have a deep and meaningful conversation without oversharing. Like at the very beginning, if you had a strained relationship, let's say with your mom, don't share the details, but you can say, my mom and I didn't always agree on everything. So you are sharing and you are showing your vulnerability without overstepping that boundary. Having a sense of pride with yourself, being proud of who you are. And this, I think, is a very, very key point in our marketing strategy. How do you feel about yourself? And this will make all the difference in the world. And I would like to ask you to sit and put together all of your strengths. What makes you special? What makes you special? And it's hard to do. It can feel so very uncomfortable to do. But once you get it started, once you decide that I am going to be loving towards myself, I am going to act as my own very best friend, and put together what your best friend would say about you. What are your greatest attributes? who is the person that loves you most in your life right now, and what would they say about you? And that becomes your marketing strategy. Those are the things that you want to tell the other person. Those are the things that you want to tell the world about you. Imagine if Coca-Cola, instead of having the smiling Santa Claus, because that's what I see, they put as their headline the grams of sugar that is in that drink, and they said, this drink will kill you. Who would ever drink Coca-Cola? And I think what has happened with Coke, it has become less popular over the years because other people have been posting that information, and that information has been out there much more than it was earlier, 20, 30, 40 years ago, that people were just indiscriminately drinking Coke instead of Poland Spring. But imagine if Coca-Cola led with that. If their marketing strategy was to tell you about all the sugar that's in their drink, it would have died 100 years ago when it first came out, and it wouldn't be a thing. So be careful not to market your weaknesses. Everybody has them. Every product has those weaknesses as well. But those are not the things that we want to advertise about. Imagine if FedEx tells you that we guarantee overnight delivery. Imagine if they told you about the number of packages that they lose on a daily basis or a weekly basis. Would you ever ship with FedEx again? No. So be selective in what you put in your marketing package. Not everybody needs to know everything, especially at the very beginning. Not everyone needs to know every pain that you've ever had. A little mystery is good, but at the same time, we need to share who we are. We need to share what is going on inside of us and what we are doing to overcome our limitations. So like Coke came out with Diet Coke because the sugar was its major problem. So they came out with a version that was new and improved that didn't have that initial problem. So that's a story of a marketing strategy where you overcame a difficulty. Like I can say that I was very shy growing up, and that's a very vulnerable and private part of me, that I had difficulty talking to anyone. If I told my 12-year-old self that I was sitting here having a live session talking to you guys, and you were actually listening and looking at me at the same time, my 12-year-old self would have wanted the earth to swallow me whole, because this would have been the most mortifying thing for me. But I can share that vulnerability with you now because it's something that I have been able to overcome. I have accomplished to overcome that insecurity, to overcome that difficulty. And every time we talk to ourselves and other people about what we have been able to overcome, then we slowly begin to understand how resilient we really are, and how, if we can accomplish those things, what other things can we overcome, and what other great things can we accomplish in our lives. If I can do this, there is so much more that I can do. There was a period, and I was a grown person, I wasn't a child anymore, that I would try to manipulate other people into making phone calls for me. If I had to call a store or call a restaurant for reservations, I had to work my way up to it. That's how shy I was and how difficult it was for me to do that. Something so small and so basic. But now that I overcame that, I can overcome so much more. And I can tell people that. And that is part of my story, that this is who I was and this is who I have become. So if you want to share your vulnerabilities, that's okay, but they don't need to know all the minute details. So let's come together and let's create a marketing strategy. What is it that you want to put out there into the world? And be prepared to market yourself. Be prepared with what you want to share when you are going on dates, so that you share the things that put you in the best possible light. You don't need to share the sugar content like Coca-Cola. So imagine what you would put together in a marketing strategy that puts you in the best light. If you want to share it with us here in the group, just some bullet points, or if you want to share more, that would be great. If you want to share it with me privately, I would love that as well. But let's do it. Let's do it as an exercise and see, what is your marketing strategy? What has it been up to now? Have you been advertising the wrong things? And what can you put forward from now on? But the easiest way of self-marketing when you're going out into the world is to put your external package together. That is step one. And I hear it from women so often, well, he should like me for who I am. But first, you have to open the door. First, you have to get to the door before he can get to know you for what you are. And men are visual. They want something nice to look at. And we are all beautiful, but we can put ourselves together well. We can dress neatly. We can put a little makeup. We can do our hair. And it sounds trivial, but it makes such a big difference. And when you're going to work, take those few minutes. You never know who you can meet there, or who knows someone that they would like to introduce to you. But if you're walking around as a hot mess, that may not be very inviting. And a lot of women do that sort of as a defense mechanism to ward people off. They make their external package as unappealing as they can to say, see, no one approaches me. See, I have no chance. This way, it's a way of protecting themselves from being rejected, because they feel, well, if I put my best foot forward and still nobody likes me, I'm going to feel bad about myself. So it's kind of an excuse, this walking around as a mess. It's an excuse to say, well, they should like me for me. Yeah, there are a lot of things in the world. There are a lot of things that, would it be great if it didn't matter? Yeah, it would be great. But the truth is that it does matter. And you want to give yourself the best possible chance to get your foot in the door, to get approached, to have more opportunities. So if it's as simple as a little hair and makeup, that's not so hard. That's not so hard. And it tells people a lot about who you are. It tells them how much you value yourself. Because when you take the time to put your external package together, that shows that you are valuable to yourself and that you care about the presentation that you are making. And this has a big psychological impact that other people don't realize. They don't see what they're doing. And this goes for men as well. I was reading a story about a woman who went on a date, and the guy showed up from the gym and he smelled bad. This is not okay. This is, even if he didn't smell, if he was still sweaty, agree to meet a half hour later and put your externals together. Shower, brush your hair, put on something nice, so that your presentation is good. Imagine if you went to your boss with a ton of papers and tried to make a presentation. We would never do that. So why do we do that so often with ourselves? I hope that this was helpful. I hope that we can come up with some marketing strategies for each other and for ourselves, and that we can work together to put our best foot forward, to show ourselves in the best possible light.